everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Divorced Woman's Guide podcast. I am your host, Wendy Sterling. How are you guys doing today? So today's episode is one that is coming directly to you from my heart. And this episode is going to talk to you guys a lot about the power of your intuition and listening to the signs of the universe. And it's going to be a lot of storytelling by me, and how this has been my guide since, my goodness, it's been now over 7 years ago. And as a lot of you guys know, my story for most of this, career of mine that has focused on being a divorce coach really started 7 years ago when I realized that my then husband of almost 15 years was having an affair. And from that day forward, my story has very much been rooted in my divorce, and so much of who I have become and everything that I have accomplished in the last 7 years has really been a result of me listening to my intuition, me really almost like tracking my progress and documenting it and tapping into, the resources that have come to me. Some have been the right time. Other ones, I could say, weren't the right time, but they enabled me to discover and find other resources that did help me. From that day that I realized what was going on in my marriage, really, my intuition has not shut up since. And if anything, it has gotten so much stronger. So much stronger that it has carried me over the last 7 years to really get to a place in my life where now I'm proud to say that my divorce is now a very small piece of my story, and it is not the foundation of it really anymore. And that's not to say that it hasn't served me, because it absolutely has. It has taught me more lessons than I knew possible. And as you guys have been loyal listeners of mine over the last 3.5 years that I've had this podcast, you guys have really allowed me to share with you all my wisdom and what I have learned over the last 7 years as I have really been just navigating this path and being your guide, being your divorced woman's guide, and trying to help you guys, because I always say that I wish that I had me when I was going through my divorce, somebody who had already sort of like with the machete gone through the jungle, carved the path. The path worked for me. It's worked for the thousands of women that I've had the privilege of working with, and millions of, women globally, and even men that I know who I have helped with my content and with everything that I have done under the Divorce Rehab brand, and also under the Divorced Women's Guide podcast brand as well. And, what I have learned about my intuition is that it is that quieter voice. It is that one within us that is like whispering to us, right? Versus our ego, which is really that loud, obnoxious voice that we think is trying to keep us safe. And, I believe that our the ego is definitely trying to do that. But at the same time, ultimately what they're doing is keeping us stuck. And what I have shared with you guys from day one is really what my intuition has gifted me with, the knowledge that I have been gifted through my intuition. And, since I was a little girl, I knew that I always I had intuitive capabilities. While at the time I was told they were imaginary friends, as I've gotten older and am now in my late 40s. And, even just over the last couple of years, my clairvoyance has just skyrocketed. And the things that I'm able to see and hear and feel have not only benefited me in my life, but thankfully have also benefited the amazing clients that I am so incredibly privileged to work with on a daily basis. And it has really been through my intuition where I have created each and every one of these podcast episodes. My intuition has also led me to all the guests that I have had on my podcast. And it's really enabled me to create all of the programs that Divorce Rehab has gifted to so many of you guys. And what I hope you guys have learned over the course of this podcast is really for you guys to, wherever it is that you have been on your journey, I know that I have gotten you to the point that I have gotten to, which is really seeing your divorce as a gift and really seeing your divorce as something that happened for you and has really enabled you to live, figure out what living life outside of your role as wife gets to look like. And, there's something that I learn something every day, and I love sharing my wisdom. And I also know that I am being called to something new and something exciting. And so I want to use this podcast episode to really share with you guys that the Divorced Women's Guide podcast is always going to be living. It's always going to be there. However, this is my final episode that will be airing. And that is because really what has happened for me is I am being called to a higher purpose. I am being called to a higher power to really start pivoting my messages and to start pivoting my content to those of you who are essentially where I was at about 1.5 2 years ago on my journey, when my intuition was ultimately becoming my guide. And I'm going to share with you guys sort of what that journey looked like and explain to you what it is that I am creating that is going to be my new podcast that each and every one of you guys gets to continue and be on this journey with me. And I completely understand if it doesn't, and I'm totally okay with that. I get to honor what feels right for me. I also get to honor where I'm at in my process. And, as you guys know, my ex-husband and I are very dear friends, and we co-parent better than we probably ever parented when we were married. And I'm at a place right now in my life and, in my personal life where I am in a committed relationship. We live together, our families have commingled. And, I'm just at that place now where ultimately what lights me up is where I was 2 years ago. And that point was really after my mom passed away. And as you guys know, my mom was diagnosed with cancer on the same day that I had asked my now ex-husband for a divorce. And so my mom and I walked a very parallel path. And since my mom's passing, my intuition has just opened up in a whole new way. And I know that she has a lot to do with that. I know that she is one of my guides and my lights that, is on, sort of that other side and that other dimension. And since really leaning into that and knowing that that's where she is and knowing that that's where she got to go in order to better serve me and to be connected still with me on the other side, has really, she's my guide. I mean, she is the one who I know is watching over me, who I know is cheering me on. She was always my, one of my biggest cheerleaders. I think my sons would put up a fight against that. But ultimately, she has not stopped talking to me since she has been on that other side. And I haven't stopped listening. And it's been such a gift because it has not only helped me to heal my grief and to heal, a lot of what her death symbolized for me, but to also come to a place where I fully lean into my intuition, where I fully lean into my clairvoyance, and how it is that I'm able to really gift that to all of my clients. And it's not something that I can sit here and explain to you other than, it happens. I get these hits when I'm on calls. I hear things. I visually can see things. I just have this inner knowing And, you know, a lot of what my journey has been about is really like, is this real? What is going on? Right. And the more I lean into my intuition, the brighter and more abundant my life has become versus when I was trying to fight it. That's where the scarcity and the lack and the constriction was coming in. And, you know, you guys hear me talk about that a lot. And it really came in for me again over this last year, where I have been in that place where I have been in that scarcity. I have been in this, you know, in this place where I feel so dedicated to you guys, to the topic of divorce. And, you know, I fought it with every bone in my body. And unfortunately, the universe and my spirit guides had a completely different plan for me. And ultimately, what that plan was me letting go of divorce rehab and me not saying it's going away, but it is not a brand that I am continuing to put myself into because I am in a completely different place. And I literally fought it, you guys, like with every bone in my body. So much so that I went into Puerto Rico earlier this year. I went into, you know, one of the portals there of transformation, and clear as day, I got a message that said, burn it down. And it was a message that came on my phone. We were doing work on the beach. We were doing spiritual work on the beach. And when we were complete, I picked up my phone because I was going to go take pictures on the beach and go record stuff. And literally all of a sudden I picked up my phone and that AJR Burn the House Down song just came on. And it wasn't something that I listened to or had playing before. And I just was like, oh my God. And ever since that day in February of 2023, earlier this year, that I got that message, I've really been fighting it, you guys, because I felt that this was, you know, oh, it must be wrong, or maybe I'm just supposed to have it look this way. And the signs just kept coming. They kept coming in waves and in subliminal messages that I tried to look the other way, but I couldn't. It followed me to France, more signs coming in, a lot of signs around how, you know, new birth, rebirthing myself. And it came in messages again during the month of August when I was taking my self-care month, and also when I was in Maui during the Lahaina fires. All the messages kept coming in around really following my heart. And ultimately, a couple of weeks, or even just last week, I was back in Puerto Rico, and that was the final voice that came through that said, "It's done, Wendy, like it's done." And it has been so hard for me to really have to say goodbye to a brand that has really put me on the map, that has really enabled me to help so many people, which ultimately that's what I want my legacy to be, right? I want you guys to have resources that I didn't have. And I know that I've done that. I know that I have told you and taught you everything that I know, and you will still have access to all of my content, all of my programs, all of my workshops that exist. And you guys can still get those. It's not that I'm taking them away. I'm just not putting anything new into them. And instead, what I'm going to be doing is putting my efforts into a new brand, which is my name. It's Wendy Page Sterling. And Page is actually not my middle name legally, but it was the middle name that my parents had initially told me that they were going to give me, but then changed it at the last minute. And so part of the message that I got, and actually got it confirmed through a medium about a week and a half ago, was that Paige is the name I'm supposed to use for this brand. And it is, my mom has approved it. She gets it. She thinks it's beautiful. And it's a little bit of me honoring my mom in this new brand, because it's really been what she has enabled me to really come to a place where I'm ready to take a step and a giant leap into this next phase. And for those of you who have been on the same journey journey as me, I know that you guys are going to keep following. I know that you're going to keep listening, because the curiosity piece of like, what is Wendy going to talk about next is going to be bingeable. And you guys are going to want to keep listening to my new podcast, which is called The Power in the Pause podcast. And I encourage you guys to go find it, and you're going to want to start subscribing to it, because it is launching on October 11th, and it's going to be launching on all podcast platforms as well. And ultimately, what that podcast is going to be all about is this. And that is when you recognize the power in the pause, that's when you get to listen and tune in and really intuitively hear the message, so that you can start designing your life based on your intuition, exactly how it is that I have done over the last 2 years. And I haven't stopped since. And the abundance has been flowing ever since. And so what I get to share with you guys moving forward is really this next journey that I'm on. And that's where I get to walk my clients through. That's what I get to help them to learn. And ultimately, what my goal is to support you as you are spiritually awakening your true inner self and that true, pure heart of yours that I know is been crying to be freed. And I know that it is something that gets to give birth within each and every one of you guys. And the ultimate womb opening comes from the lens of forgiveness. And I know that you guys have been hearing me talk about that for quite some time. But ultimately, what self-forgiveness enables you to ignite and to illuminate is that pure heart light. And until you get to that place, you are just not going to fully be leaned into that intuition. And I will share with you guys, actual examples of what it was that opened up for me in my new podcast, so that you guys get some glimpses into really what the power of forgiveness has, and also forgiveness that my clients have experienced and how that has opened them up to new levels of their intuition and have taken them on a path that feels authentic and real and heart-centered and easy with flow, right? How many of us want to do less and be more? Well, ultimately, that is what this new podcast is going to enable each and every one of you guys to lean into and to keep plugging away with. So if you are somebody who has belief in a higher power, if you believe in the power of the universe, you are going to want to subscribe and come on over and listen to my new podcast, The Power in the Pause. And I'm going to share with you guys just everything that I have learned, everything that I keep learning on my journey, because I don't talk about anything that I haven't experienced. I don't share any wisdom that I haven't experienced myself, because God knows there is a ton of information out there. And I have probably read most of it. I have probably experienced most of it. But what I share is really truly what has worked for me, what I see working for my clients. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the same thing across the board. Different things work for different people. I'm all about arming you guys with a toolkit so that you have something to be able to pull from. But ultimately, your intuition is not a toolkit that I can give you a tool for. Instead, what the podcast is going to do is exactly what I do for my clients. And that is this. It is to enable you to create that space, right? To create a space for you to feel safe and to trust what your intuition is saying, what it's telling you, what it sounds like, and to get you deeper connected to it so that you can start living a life that feels amazing, that is full of abundance, that is in alignment with who it is that you are. And I don't care what life transition you've been through. I have been through divorce. I have been through a life transition of losing my mom. I am also estranged from my sister. I've been through career changes, any life transition, you guys, I have been through it. And I can tell you that it is my intuition that has gotten me through every single step of the way and has gotten me to this amazing life that I'm living. And so, again, I want to thank you guys. I want to celebrate what, I couldn't do this without you guys. I couldn't do this without the comments and the feedback and the emails that I get. And, I listen to everything, and I'm always listening, even when you don't know that I'm listening. And all of my content has really been in service of all of you. So I want to say thank you. I want to celebrate each and every one of you guys for who it is that you are, the work that I know that you're putting into your healing and to your recovery. And if you guys want to keep following me, I know that this new podcast is going to open up a door that you already have been looking through the peephole, or maybe you've unlocked it and you are seeking somebody to really help you walk through it to the other side. Well, this podcast is going to do that for you, very much the same way that the Divorce Women's Guide podcast and the Divorce Rehab have helped each and every one of you guys to get through from marriage into divorce, that single, some of you guys, single moms, some of you guys don't have kids or your kids have moved away, but really this is the next phase. This is the next transition. This is where I'm at and headed, and where my clients are as well. So I really hope that you guys keep tuning in to my new podcast and subscribing and leaving reviews for me, which is only going to enable more people to listen and to find me and to get the support and the guidance that I know is going to make a difference in everyone's life. So thank you guys so much for your loyalty and for tuning into today's episode. I hope that you have gained nuggets of information that support you and that will continue to support you on your journey. And you can find me over at The Power in the Pause podcast with Wendy Page Sterling, my new brand. And so many amazing also new programs will be coming out that are going to follow that you guys are going to want to dig into, I know. But here I'm saying, thank you for tuning in to this episode, and I send you all so much love, light, and joy as always. Mwah. Bye, everybody.